Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, it's a little different. I'm sure everyone watching this is already aware, but Damar Hamlin, number 3 safety for the Buffalo Bills, collapsed on the football field last night, underwent cardiac arrest and then CPR and defibrillation, and is now listed in critical condition in a hospital in Cincinnati, a level 1 trauma center. We join the rest of the world and followers of Jesus in praying for him and especially his family. It's a very scary situation. And I think for me, in reflecting on it, it's kind of a sounding call to all the other events that happen like this and the kind of world that we live in. We live in a fallen world where people are afflicted by sickness and death because of our own choices. And even a healthy, young 24-year-old in excellent shape is susceptible to these kinds of health issues. No matter what caused it, he is prone to sickness and death, and it's shocking. And I think for me, my heart goes out to his family who has to deal with their child in this situation, and to everyone around the world who has to deal with something like this, the threat of the loss of life of a family member, and the kind of scares that puts on everyone around them. It's just an awful situation. But one thing that's interesting, or maybe I don't even know if you want to call it a silver lining or a positive, is that in the middle of this situation, you'll see that people's first instinct is to pray. Prayer is the first thing that comes to mind when there's nothing left that we can control. And that's primarily focused on the secular audience watching this. But I think it's just another reminder that all of this is real, that prayer is powerful and effective, as it says in James 5, and that in participating in it, we surrender ourselves to a divine interventionist, a great physician who can do wonderful and miraculous things where human hands can fail. So I just wanted to focus a little bit of our conversation around that, and obviously express our concern and sadness for Damar Hamlin. So,
yeah, I mean, this is a topic that no one really has any good words to. I mean, there's nothing anyone can really say, and so I don't think that's what we're trying to do. But I, with you, shared, like, I noticed pretty quickly, which I think was surprising, just the world we live in and the more secularized that our culture is as we enter the year 2023. I mean, in most tragedies or events that like this, to hear the terms, thoughts, and prayers isn't uncommon. But I thought it interesting, or I guess I took notice that the word prayer was probably used more predominantly for this situation. And I was telling you, I said, I don't know if that's a byproduct of the way like the team handled stuff, the way they like went and took a knee and were praying on the field. Like that set a tone for how most other people interpreted what to do with that moment, or if, I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. I just found it very surprising that the term prayer was thrown around as much as it was in the last 24 hours since the situation happened. And I mean, the term prayer can be pretty general, so it's, it can kind of mean what everyone wants it to mean. I mean, I even saw people talk about, send your good energies or whatever, that kind of, I'm not even sure what that means. I mean, other than if you think energy is connected to, like sort of in the, like we're all connected in some form or fashion, just the universe or whatever. I mean, there's lots of different ways you could describe that. But like to your point, there was at least something about the moment that happened on the football field where there's oh yeah, we don't control everything, or at least we don't control everything to the degree that we wish we could be able to control everything. And that's harder and harder, I think, in our culture to realize that that's part of reality. And it's something as followers of Jesus, we're called to acknowledge that that's part of reality. That's part of the story we live into, is that we were created by the God who the creator, the one who brought us into existence. And without him, we spiral toward, lack of life. And ever since humanity has separated from God, our belief has been that, like, well, we can do life without God. And yet it's in moments where we are confronted with, oh, I can't control like all of my destiny, or I can't control all of what it means to sustain life. It's in those moments that we're left with nothing but to cry out to someone or something that we think can do more than we can do. And for us who follow Jesus, that's Jesus, that's the God of the universe, that's the Lord of all life, that's who we cry out to. And so I think for followers of Jesus, it's at least a reminder of that's the way we're called to view life all the time, not just when we don't know what to do. And the temptation very much can be for us to be like, oh yeah, in moments like that I cry out to God, but like it needs to be with any and all situations. Like we should live with an understanding that we're vulnerable all the time, like you mentioned earlier.
Right.
And it sadly takes a situation like this where we're confronted with someone's life at death's doorstep that, oh yeah, we're vulnerable. And yet that's been reality all the time. We just choose not to realize it in a lot of situations.
So I think one way as followers of Jesus where we can set an example for other people through our faith is not going to prayer as the last option, but as the first option, as the most.
And I'm guilty of that. Like
I'd
as
say,
much as I can say the words.
Exactly.
And I think that's. I mean, you finish. I'll continue with when you're done.
Well, yeah, I was gonna bring that up. I'm not the best at that either, but it is a way that we can shape and mold ourselves to be more faithful disciples and to spread the knowledge of who God is and how He cares about us. And one thing I would emphasize, in addition to everything we said already, is that I don't believe that this is Damar Hamlin's fault. I don't believe that this is God's fault. I think it is a consequence of all of humanity. It's a consequence of the world that we live in. We know that this kind of thing happens, but the hope that we have as followers of Jesus is that even though these things happen to our bodies, even though our body is condemned to die because of the sins that we have committed, because of how we've rebelled against God, Jesus has started this wonderful resurrection process that being united to Him, we will be united with Him in His resurrection, not only in this age, but in the age to come. We will conquer this. We will have a new resurrection body. We will live in a new reality that is free from sickness, free from death, and free from sorrow and pain. So that's what we put our hope in situations like that. May God deliver Damar Hamlin, and may he come back and be healthy, because his life is more important than football. And no matter what he does after this, I hope he has the opportunity to do something. But not my will, but His will, right? So,
yeah. So I was just gonna circle back when we were talking about praying. Like, I think one formative thing that followers of Jesus, I think, can take away from this situation to help shape us more into not just pray when like we're at dire straits. I mean, in some ways we could say that's a reactionary moment of prayer, which I'm not saying don't do. Like, I think we're still supposed to do, we're still supposed to pray, cry out to God and in reaction to things that happen. Like, that's still part of what we're called to be and do in following Jesus. But I think this also highlights how when we live life more in a habit of prayer, when it isn't in the dire straits of a situation, that we become shaped more and more to realize like who we are in relation to the rest of life and who we are in relation to the rest of God. Like if crying out to God is something we do more routinely than just when we don't know what else to do, I think it can help. I think we see in Scripture, and we see, I think throughout Scripture, like we come to a better understanding of like, I'm always fragile. I'm always in need of someone other than myself. And that's the way we get shaped to live life, not just when we don't know what else to do. And so, I think this moment can be something that helps prompt us to realize, like, how do we view life? How do we view life? Do we view it in the fragile state that it is with where we live, and the now but not yet dynamic of Jesus coming to redeem the world and make all things new and better, like you were just talking about. So, we hope and pray that he will recover well. We hope peace and comfort for his family as they're dealing with it, and really just as everybody is processing it. I mean, one other thing I guess I've noticed is that, I mean, as much as we're talking about how we can often ignore the fragility of life, like I think that's one thing that came out of the situation when it happened is it was just like this, oh yeah, this can happen. And so I pray, God will use this situation to help people process life and their place within life in relation to him, and how life really ultimately comes from God, and it's a gift from God, and it's by his grace that we get to experience it to start with, and we're grateful for that, and we hope and pray that each and every person gets to continue to experience the gift of life that God has given to each one of us, and has the hope of living into that into eternity with a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's really no words to really sum up or kind of, I guess, explain everything. That's not, hopefully that's not what we tried to do, but I guess we thought there's kind of a, maybe, I don't know if unique perspective, but that followers of Jesus, I think, have from just viewing life in relation to trying to make prayer a habit of our life, and like, how do we engage with situations beyond just like a scary situation like what we all experienced, whether we watched it or heard about it or read about it later. So yeah, hopefully it prompts us to lean into God all the more. I think that's one thing we hope can come out of it. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode of the podcast, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.